And welcome back to Rome, everyone. We're here on this time we've moved up to the roof of the FAO building. And I'm here with Oliveros from the Agroecology Coalition. Hi, Oliver.
Hi, how are you doing, Oliver? Another Oliver.
The Olivers reunite. So, Oliver from the regenerative movement and Oliver from the agroecology movement.
Exactly.
And we're both united under common goals, common visions.
Of transforming food systems through agroecology. So your group is a part of the coalition. Absolutely, one of the early members, right?
We are one of the early members.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fantastic.
And so the Agroecology Coalition is based here in Rome, which is the city of food, really.
City of food, absolutely. That's why we're here for. And we really wanted to take advantage of, what the city represents in terms of food and agriculture policy conversations, and take advantage of our presence here, and that's the reason why the coalition is based here. Take advantage of all the conversations happening around, try to link with people, like-minded people, and hopefully an area to influence conversations around agroecology and sustainable food systems transformation.
And so here at the FAO, agroecology has been recognized with 13 principles.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, it's more of the 10 elements of agroecology. The language that FAO uses, where 197 member states has approved several years ago, was the 10 elements of agroecology. And these 10 elements of agroecology are fully aligned with the 13 principles of agroecology as enshrined in the high-level panel of experts report of the Committee on Food Security, the CFS. So these two are the anchor of the coalition. This is sort of like, I always say, this is our compass that guides our work, the way we want to go. As long as, we are led by these principles, we should be moving in the right direction, so to speak.
As we were just discussing now, our People's Food Summit was based on creating an event that was an alternative to the United Nations Food Systems Summit that happened in 2021 in New York. And we were part of the NGOs that boycotted this summit because the presidency was held by the people that were behind the agricultural green revolution in Africa. And your coalition, you're working within this Food Systems Summit. Could you explain the work you're doing in promoting agroecology in this space? What are you trying to achieve?
Well, I think we're trying to make a point of that when you talk about systems. Probably the Food Systems Summit is one of the very few, if not the only, UN labeled summit, even if it's a UN Secretary General's summit, where you have the word system in it. And I think that's a very good entry point to drive home the point that we need to think systems, we need to think holistic, and we need to think about people. So the Food Systems Summit initially was framed as a people summit, that's one. And what was also framed as a system summit. And when you talk about people, when you talk about systems, I mean, agroecology comes to mind. And for me and for us within the coalition, it's no-brainer that we need to, for lack of a better word, ride on that summit to be able to drive home the point that if we want to transform our food systems, we really need to make sure that we're systems thinking and that we are looking at the welfare of the people and the planet as well.
You have united now many different stakeholders, so NGOs, countries, farmer organizations, and research institutions.
Right.
And you're organizing work groups. So
Yes.
You're a very young coalition. You started maybe a year ago.
Yeah, almost 2 years. Almost 2 years ago. The coalition is currently composed of 47 member states and 140 and still growing organizations, from research to civil society to academia, grassroots movement and whatnot. And the work of the coalition is really, we wanted to focus on 3 work streams or 3 thematic areas. One really is to facilitating the co-creation and exchange of knowledge on agroecology. And knowledge meaning both a scientific but also an equally important knowledge that is coming from the ground. the practices that grassroots frontline actors on food systems are doing, and even what indigenous groups, indigenous peoples have been doing since time immemorial. So the idea there is for the coalition to facilitate exchange and co-creation of knowledge on agroecology. The second one is to use that body of knowledge as sort of like an evidence to push for increased investments in agroecology. Let's face it, agroecology has received a lot of attention, and it has been, it has been recognized or continuously growing in terms of attraction. But we feel that the level of investments that are pouring on agroecology is not commensurate to the level of recognition that it is having now, or the level of recognition that it deserves. So we really think that we need to push donors, public and private, to really invest more on agroecology. That's the second work stream. The third work stream is really to look at having more political engagement and political will and support towards agroecological transformation, and using spaces like the CFS, the Food Systems Summit, the 3 Rio Conventions on climate, biodiversity, and desertification as an entry point to really push the agroecology agenda, saying that through agroecology you're able to address your climate, biodiversity, and land targets. And then, of course, I think we really need to anchor conversations around agroecology on health and nutrition as well. Because, I mean, healthy food, healthy planet, right? So that's also one of the things that that gains the following from the common people, from the consumers, and from the general public in general. So we're trying to address those 3 work streams. We're working along those 3 work streams insofar as the coalition is concerned.
There are huge investments going into new markets such as Africa, and we're seeing large corporations, large seed companies, large agrochemical corporations wanting to push products that, if we're talking about agroecology, we're talking about traditional food systems, traditional farming systems, traditional seeds.
Right.
And the biggest investors aren't talking about investing in those traditional systems, but into more, this American products, Chinese products, big organizations such as Africa, for instance. They're really calling out. They're really sounding the alarm bell on corporate takeover of food systems.
No, absolutely. I think we really need to be vigilant around this. There's very much susceptibility to greenwashing, and we all know that, right? And I think it's really important to keep the agroecological principles. We really need to uphold those principles, because that's our compass. We know that, if you want to be truly agroecological and true food systems transformation in a sustainable way, you need to look at principles around equity, fairness, governance, diversity, healthy soil, healthy environment, etc. So you really need to make sure that we are looking at all these interventions with those 13 principles as our lens. Otherwise, we could easily sort of like get swayed by, let's face it, I mean, private sector has so much funds going towards marketing and branding. So there's much more empowered and into that part. So our only I think our only ammunition against that is being true to our principles and making sure that we know our principles well. And these are, the principles that guide the work of the coalition. And that's essentially the 13 principles of agroecology. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Oliver. Just before we leave off, so for anyone who wants to join the coalition and take part, what are the benefits? Why join?
Well, first and foremost, you will be, engaging with cool people, with like-minded people who are really keen on addressing and pushing for a sustainable food systems through agroecology. And it's not only the people that you would normally work with, because if you are from the civil society group, the tendency is to camp with the civil society groups. At this, you would be able to interact with people from different angles, from research, from philanthropy, to donor, to private sector, small and medium enterprises. And they're all talking agroecology from where they're sitting. So that enriches your perspective insofar as agroecology is concerned. It will allow you also to learn from what they're learning. What are the challenges of scaling agroecology? So that will give you some insights on the challenges that they're facing and how you are able to overcome that, hopefully. And then of course there are several things that we're lining up as well in terms of those different work streams that I mentioned, in terms of funding, in terms of policy conversations. So we wanted to sort of like present agroecology as a platform where members are able to not only identify sources of funding, but more importantly, to influence how funding can be made by engaging in conversations with donors, both public and private, but also for those who are engaging in policy conversations from global to regional and at the national level as well.
Oliver, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Oliveros.
Thank you.
Yep, fantastic.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.